All right. Hello, everybody online. We are keeping you posted about what's going on outside. Clouds are increasing. Weather First meteorologist Garry Frank with an update about what's going on in the next 36 hours. We've talked about the potential for severe weather. Not necessarily today. It's not out of the question, but really Tuesday is our day that we're circling here for the most part. And as you look outside, what's going on is not a lot. We've got clouds that are starting to increase. And one of the reasons we'll point out today is because it's not out of the question that we'll see a few storms as it's 85 degrees. It's not all that humid. Our dew point's in the low 50s. That's not all that exciting, but it really shows where I'll show you this boundary is. It really makes a difference. On one side of it, it's drier. On the other side, we've got more humidity that's starting to settle in with an east breeze at 7 miles an hour. The big picture as we look at our severe weather potential today is pretty low, but I do want to mention it because we're under a marginal risk, the lowest risk for severe weather that really stretches in kind of an odd fashion where the main storm system is here, and I'll actually put this on the full screen here so you can see this. The main storm system is here that we go from really central Nebraska, South Dakota, and then eventually into the panhandle, right? But also we're involved in this marginal severe weather risk, and most of us are, and it actually stretches all the way to even into the capital and closer to Virginia. But the reason that we're under this marginal severe weather risk is because we have this front that's kind of settled in, and we don't see much of it here as we have just kind of that wind shift. You'll notice those wind direction areas right about here. And that's where we have that east breeze. We kind of have more of that south breeze. That's where the humidity is settled in. And as long as this front continues to kind of hang around, you'll see that cloud cover that's associated with that front. That's where it's not out of the question that we have a storm that maybe pops up the rest of the afternoon. It's 85 degrees right now, and you look off to the northwest where it's much warmer even, and that's feeding that Gulf moisture here. And what I want to point out on a couple of things here as we look ahead, this is the front that's settled in. That's responsible for maybe an isolated storm today. We mention it because it's not out of the question. All of a sudden you see one severe thunderstorm warning for larger hail and you say, hey, I thought the severe weather threat was for tomorrow. It is. This is part one. The main system is tomorrow as it sits right into the northeastern corner of Colorado in far west Kansas, and that's the main system tomorrow. Storms will develop along this dry line of air for convection and initiation of convection in the afternoon. But right now, we've got these storms today, and that's where I think we're going to see the first part of this area as we start to add that humidity. So let's talk about this evening because it's not out of the question. Around sunset, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, we'll have a couple of these storms that bubble up along that front. That could produce brief quarter-sized hail. That's the only thing that we'll see probably today. But into this evening, temperatures are holding steady, clouds increasing, maybe a storm that pops up. However, as we look toward tomorrow, it is now including into Pike County, Bowling Green. That's the one spot that's in that enhanced level for severe weather. That's 3 of 5 from the Storm Prediction Center. So most of us under that slight risk. So what does that mean? Well, we are going to see the possibility for stronger to severe storms tomorrow as that main system settles in, but you'll really see this kind of an X-ray, and I'll actually put this into full screen and move this a little bit more because this is kind of an X-ray. This is a different look of where this system is, and you can see where on the leading edge of this storm, I just want to point this out, watch how we start to see storms that are firing on the leading edge of this. That's what we're going to have tomorrow and really over the next 24 hours. How does that set up for tomorrow? We're going to watch that area specifically this evening as Scott continues to track this area for development here. And as those storms continue to race off to the east, are we going to have clouds in the morning? We're going to have rain? Are they going to hold off? Are we going to see a break where it gets hot and humid again? That's not out of the question. But I think where you'll see that spin, that's why I wanted to show you this, because the leading edge of that dry line of air will probably start to fire up some storms ahead. And by tomorrow between 2 and about 10 o'clock, it's not out of the question that we'll have clouds initially. And then if we see more sunshine and we're back into the mid 80s and we see that heat and humidity build, that's where some of these storms could really start to be on the stronger side. Also notice that these storms are not necessarily a well-defined line. They're kind of by themselves. That's where the largest hail threat is going to be. And if we're going to circle a spot here specifically for larger hail, I think it's probably going to be areas right about here. This is probably where the largest hail is going to be, and I'm going to refine that just a little bit more because it probably went a little further south based on where I'd like it. But I really think that it's areas northern Missouri, Quincy, maybe even into Pike County as well, where that enhanced risk. That's where the probably largest hail is going to be and the highest tornado risk. That doesn't mean areas to the south won't be involved in that. And as I kind of move this around and put this into motion some more, I still think that we'll see a few of these storms that are probably going to develop even as late as 6, 7, 8 o'clock behind that front, and then it clears out pretty quickly. So that's our window. So it is a weather alert day. It's just how many clouds are we going to have midday? That's why we still have some of these questions. So timing will be between 2 and 10 with hail and wind as our main threats. Not out of the question that we'll have a brief, weaker tornado, but I think hail and wind are probably our main threats overall for some of this. So as we look ahead, now I just want to continue to update you and check in with our live stream and see if we got any questions that are specific to what's going on tomorrow.
No questions yet. Barb says, thanks, Gary, for keeping us informed and safe.
All right, thanks, Barb. We got your back. We're hanging out this afternoon. Like I said, myself and Scott are watching this today. The rest of the Weather First team will be watching this the rest of this evening. And I think, as we look at this ahead, this is the area that's probably going to have some sort of either tornado watch or severe thunderstorm watch or some kind of combination right now. And even if you just look at a few things, what's going on right now, I mean, look at all these different watches and warnings that are going on right now. I mean, these are all for some sort of wind or red flag warning for high fire danger. I mean, you look at this high fire danger here, everywhere. I mean, high wind watch. There's significant wind that's moving its way to the surface. Imagine what it looks like above the surface. And when we interact with all the other ingredients that are in place from Gulf moisture, yes, we got a question. All right, here we go.
All right, this one, why so many hailstorms?
Why so many hailstorms? That's a good question. We got a lot of, it's that time of the year where we see these air masses clash, where we have this Gulf moisture. We also have a lot of wind, and so there's a lot of some of these storms that develop, and they go over 35,000, upwards of 40,000 feet at times. So when we have the at least the ingredients in place to take what you see as rain, well, all that stuff's going up and down in the clouds at times where it's a lot colder, obviously 30,000 feet above the surface. Just think about that when you're on a plane and you look outside of everything. So it's going up and down, and that's why if you see those hailstones, they have some of those weird layers inside them because they've been up and down in some of that. So as they continue to grow and go up into those larger storms that are kind of by themselves, that's why we have big hail. And the one obviously that comes into mind recently is O'Fallon, where we had some of those storms that grew up to 30,000 feet. And when we see those singular supercell thunderstorms, oftentimes they rotate and they have the tornado threat with them as well. So that's why it's that time of the year, April, May, Tornado Alley and our severe weather threat time. And that's why, like I said, even if you just look at some of the threats for today, and I'll put this on a different product from the Storm Prediction Center, and you look at just some of the main things that we're looking at for just today. I mean, this is, the tornado risk for some of these spots here just today, just purely from a tornado standpoint. I mean, that's where you're looking at a 10% tornado risk from central Nebraska into Hays, Kansas on 70. And that's what's generally trending north of us tomorrow. But, 10%, even a 2% chance for tornadoes is something that we monitor pretty carefully. But when you look at a 10% tornado risk, that means we've got a lot of wind at different directions in the surface and above the surface. And even looking at this for tomorrow, I'll show you what this looks like for tomorrow. This is where the bullseye for tornadoes and hail continue to be. This is north, and really, like I mentioned, this Bowling Green, Pike County, north of our area. That's Kirksville. This is northeastern Missouri. And when you look at this for hail, same thing. I mean, we're involved in the hail. I think hail is going to be our biggest risk tomorrow. Some of the storms may rotate as well. I really think Tuesday morning we'll get a better handle on how all those storms that developed out west, how they're going to impact us. Okay, metro area, I think still, we're still just looking, a lot of us have a similar risk for tomorrow as we are remaining under that slight risk for severe weather. And you see this, and a lot of times we show you this map, and what exactly does it mean? Well, you know, category 2 of 5 from the Storm Prediction Center, we see that one probably a lot more than anything, and it's kind of a broad risk of, we see the possibility for scattered severe storms, and I think that's the case. When you start to get into the enhanced, moderate, and high, that's widespread storms, and when you get up to these, that's where you see maybe those longer track tornadoes that are probably associated with that, or multiple tornado outbreaks. For us, we only see one of those areas involved in that enhanced risk, and that's far north. That doesn't mean that can't shift, but like I mentioned, I think that the main threat from north to south, whether it be Farmington, St. Louis, Litchfield, Effingham, is probably going to be hail. And the further out, of course, out of our area you get, you're not going to quite see that. I think it really is just going to depend on how things set up for us tomorrow morning. Do we see more sunshine? Do we have clouds that hang around and rain that hangs around? That could at least destabilize our atmosphere, where we maybe see some smaller hail, but those storms don't grow to the extreme heights of 30,000 plus feet that we perhaps would see in a day where it's sunny and warm.
Misty's asking if flooding seems to be a concern.
Okay, Misty was asking if flooding is a concern. Probably not for tomorrow. The ground's still pretty dry. We've had enough recovery from our last rain. And I can probably put that on here real quick for you. I would say overall, we're probably not going to see much because it just doesn't look like this is a big rain producer because of the amount that things move quickly for one reason. Even if I just scan this for one day, I mean, watch where the main rain is to the north, and that's not doing a great job of it because I'm just doing this on the fly. But it's not exactly what I would expect to be. You'll look at where even the contours are not going through too much, right? But I don't have any numbers on this thing, but you can see where the heaviest rain is. These storms are moving really quickly, a half an inch, higher in thunderstorms, but with how fast the wind is moving at the surface and above the surface, these things are moving out pretty quickly. So I don't think they're going to be incredibly efficient rain producers, especially with how dry the ground is.
A few questions on the, if you could review the timing.
Okay.
Again.
A few questions on the timing once again for tomorrow, and once again, this is probably a 2 o'clock all the way through about 10 o'clock, and I think that's probably being pretty generous as we look at what this may look like tomorrow. Scan through really quickly. I think that about 12 or 1 o'clock we'll start to see a few of these storms off to the west that develop. It's still probably cloudy here with maybe some rain. Like I mentioned, if that cloud cover clears out, then these storms will probably be a little bit stronger. You'll notice how, like I mentioned, once again, when we see these storms that develop by themselves, that grow, and they continue to twist, that's why the tornado threat and the hail threat remains there. But watch how this starts to work its way toward us. And this doesn't mean that it's going to look exactly like this. But as we start to see more storms settle in, I think that this is really a classic afternoon to evening setup. After 2 o'clock, you'll see that there it is at 2 o'clock. Storms start to move in from west to east, maybe into the metro by 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. And then because of how quickly this is moving out, we're going to see a hard and fast line where that area is clear. We're not going to deal with the severe weather threat anymore. But look, by 10 o'clock, this is already out of Mount Vernon and Effingham. And I think this is really probably somewhere between 3 and 8 o'clock if you're being really a tight window. But the biggest window, probably 2 to 10. All right. Well, we've done our due diligence here when it comes to keeping you posted. Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell will have updates later on some of these things. Like I mentioned, it's still possible for a stronger storm to develop closer to the time that he'll probably check in with you. So he'll have an update, and there will be more activity where that big orange enhanced risk is. But we'll keep you posted. Until then, we'll see you coming up at 4 on the air.